Hey guys, this is Eric Weingarten with Weingarten Racing. I want to thank you guys for subscribing. A lot of you have come forward. Several of you asked for a shop tour of my shop, and that's what today's video is going to be about. Because on Fridays, usually I do racing ones. There's a heavy tech video that's coming up on Sunday. It's going to be about LS3 heads and how much flow is lost with milling in them versus not milling in them, and also how much you can gain in a valve job. In future weeks, because I've been working on other stuff, I just haven't had time to put it all together as far as editing goes. But one about cams, because several people have asked. This one's pretty neat. It really is cool. I'll give you a clue. There's a cam doctor, and I used one I want to show you. But that one's going to be neat. And then also there's another one coming up about, I'm going back on what not to do on head porting. And I'll show you some actual, because you asked for proof, and I've got that, but I haven't added that all together yet either. That's a later tech video, and also a whole bunch of product stuff. But I'm just going to do this one's a quick shop tour, and you'll see some of the cool stuff. Maybe learn a few things, because I've got some projects here I can show you as well, just kind of get you an idea. First off, this is my seat and guide machine. This is a Rottler SG7. I bought it several years ago, brand new. I tried buying used equipment and it burned me. So one of mine bought a seat and guide machine, and I'll go ahead and tell you, this is a weird story. I bought a used seat and guide machine. It was a TNS, and I bought it from a company in Texas. And anyway, got it to the shop, tried using it, and what it would do is when you would cut a valve job, it would go down so far, and then out of nowhere, it would drop again. So if you try to set in all the heights the same, which is what you want to do whenever you're doing a valve job on a head, it would keep setting. You would have this one here, you go to the next one, you got it perfect, right? Go to the next one, you set it at the right height, and all of a sudden it dropped down further. Couldn't figure it out. Had the guy from the owner from TNS come and look at it, and he's like, he looked at it and said what to do and stuff, and tried some stuff, and that didn't work. Then finally he's like, take out the spindle, which is this whole piece through here, send it to me, and then I will fix it. So we do that, get it back, same thing. So the company that I got it from, even though it was used equipment, they are super great. Really great. They're I think in Houston, Texas, maybe. They're like, send it back. We'll come and pick it up, and we'll take it to them, because TNS was right there, and we'll get it fixed. And anyway, I was kind of heartbroken because I spent a lot of money on the machine. I mean, a lot. Anyway, they took it off on the trailer, and I guess somewhere here in Tulsa, some woman cut out in front of them, and they had to slam on the brakes, and the machine tipped over, and it broke. Which, it sounds horrible, but it's probably one of the greatest things for me, and not so much for that company. That company, and if I could remember the name, I'd tell you, because I'd say if you ever want used equipment, get it from there, because that's the most trustworthy used equipment you could ever buy from. Sam Ferris, that's his name. He ended up paying for the machine, so he gave me all my money back on it, and what I paid for repairs. With that money, I ended up buying this Rottler, and it's been pretty good. I do wish I'd gotten the bigger version, the 8. The 7 works just as good in my opinion. It just takes longer to do. So you can't just feed down as hard as you want on this one compared to an 8. But it does fine. I've had good luck with it. There's some stuff that, like I said, it's just more picky with, but this is what I use for about seat and guide work itself. Works great. Anyway, that's that. Let's go to what I've got a whole bunch of other stuff to show you. This is actually, this is in the LS video, so I won't go into too much depth. This is what I use to reface valves. This is a Sioux valve refacer. I know you're like, that looks horrible, looks old. It is old, but I have used many, and by the way, to make it good, and I've shown this in the video, that's an AccuChuck. That's the key, man. You want to have valves come out accurate, get this thing on for your Sioux. You'll be so happy. Anyway, the thing works great, and I've looked at trying to buy new ones, and there's nothing that, and I've used them thinking they'll be better, because there's a couple other machine shops got newer ones, different brands and stuff, and they still won't match the finish of this, and they for sure aren't as round as this, even though it looks old. And you're like, why don't you clean it up? Because I'm almost afraid if I clean it, it'll stop working as well. So I do clean up sometimes, but I'm so afraid it's not going to be as perfect. So, and I know it sounds weird. That's probably just me. But anyway, that's what I use to reface the valves. They always turn out great. Except for one thing I will say is it doesn't do good on titanium valves. So I usually send those off. But in all fairness, when I get titanium valves, typically they're already coated, so I don't have to grind them at all. Anyway, there's that. This is what I use for surfacing heads. This is a Rottler CNC surfacer. It's really neat. I'll have to put up a video sometime just so you can see how it works. But this is what all the heads are surfaced on. I like the machine. It works great because it will cut off a certain amount, and I'm able to like do a valve job while surfacing a head. So all I gotta do is set it up, tell it to go, it goes, I go walk away, cut a valve job while this thing's running. It's pretty great. However, I will say this, I could do a video. I've had this thing, I'm gonna say 4 years, maybe 3 or 4, something like that. Anyway, it has broke down twice, and the first one of the times it broke down, it cost me $1,000 because the warranty is only good for a year. And then I could promise you it wasn't nothing I did with wear, and I could tell you exactly what went wrong. They didn't tighten down. I'll show you. This is the motor for it. I know some of you don't care, but this is the motor for it. The way it works is it turns this right here, that screw. But what happened was, and I'm going to show you the head that it done it on, is it engaged. This is a brake, and so it moves up and down using that motor. And what happens is this brake will engage and stops and locks itself in. And that's how it's supposed to work, period. The brake failed, so the head's spinning, the mill's spinning like this, cutting the head, cutting the deck surface. This fails, the whole thing drops. So it's wham! So it did this to the head. See that nasty groove there? That's the cutter. Boom. So you'd say, well, did it ruin the head? Luckily, this was a customer back out project, and I ended up getting stuck with this head, and it was mine, so it wasn't so much a customer's. And also small block Chevys, luckily, their head gasket actually doesn't even start till right here. So even though this looks like crap, it has no, I mean, I could resell it. It has no problem with functionality. So, but yeah, that was one. Another time, had issues too, and it wouldn't work, and this thing has been down. So it's, if you have the machine and it works, it's great. And I fixed that, and now they didn't come out. I fixed it myself, but that works, now it works great, and it has been for a while. But I'm so scared that something will go wrong and it's gonna cost me a fortune to fix, because this was $40,000. So if you're like, how do I get started in head porting? You'll need this is 40 grand. You'll need a seat and guide machine. You don't have to get this one. There's probably several that are better. I had experience with the Rottler, so I went with the Rottler. Overall, this is okay. And that one was $25,000, and this is gonna be some more information for you. Each one of these pilots are carbide, and they're around $250 a piece. You're like, why do you have so many? Well, these are all just 11/32. There's 5 of them, and really there needs to be a 6th. But because the guides sometimes are different size, so you have to have these, so they're in smaller increments. These are all just for the 8mm, so this is just for the LS, just to give you an idea. And there's of course some for 5/16 and different things. So that ends up costing you, and that's not included in the price of the machine. I have a whole box of my cutter blades. These cost you a fortune. Eventually, your bodies cost you a bunch and all that. Anyway, just letting you know, so a machine might cost $25,000, but you won't have the stuff to actually use it until you spend probably another $2,000, $3,000. This was $40,000, and it included the roller fixture and stuff, so you could actually cut for that, but still 40 grand. There's cheaper surfacers, no doubt about it, but I wanted something where I could walk away from it pretty easy. So there's that. This is another mill I have. This is a Peterson one. This machine has one purpose and one purpose only that I've used it for, besides some other little stuff I should say. But all it does is it cuts out the clover leaves on most of the manifolds. That's all this one does. So it's never got to be 100% precise accurate, although it probably could be. But all it pretty much does is cut intake manifolds. It's worked great, saves me a lot of time. And of all the pieces of the equipment I bought, this has probably been the most, one that I've been most pleased for the amount of money I spent. It was about $2,500. Had a 3-year warranty, which is weird. $40,000. 1-year warranty, $2,500, 3 years. What? Yeah, Anyway, that's that. This is the compressor I use. It's okay. You just get it from Lowe's, so it doesn't really matter. I'll get to those in a minute. The shop itself is kind of cluttered just because it's partly my personality. I have a Sanyes flow bench. I've had this since like 2011. I had a homemade one before that. There's a video about me comparing these two. And I also have my Superflow 750. That's my pieces of equipment. If you want to do heads, you got to have one or the other. If I was to get one and only could have one, I would get the Sanyes. You'll be much happier than the Superflow. A lot of people have Superflow though, so it's like, it's almost like you have to have it, otherwise people don't take you seriously, even though, to be quite honest, that's the better one. All right, so there's that. We'll take a quick tour around the shops and get you some other ideas. You'll notice there's a lot of blocks here. Most of these are for mock-up. This is my mock-up small block Chevy block. It's a 9-inch deck. I use it for like when I mock up intake manifolds and cylinder heads. So I'll put cylinder heads on here and the intake manifold on, drill my alignment holes to pull it off. That's what this one's for. This is the mock-up 4 block. This is the Windsor one, so it's 3.5. Here are just some of the heads that I've gotten processed. There are so many on order, it's unreal. And then there's also so many that are also in the office. This is just what I had room for. But I'll go through some of them. Dragon Slayer, Dragon Slayer, Dragon Slayer, but they're all different. So like this one's just will end up being my 242 standard, which means it's standard valve spacing. It'll be 242 cc's when done. But this one does have 5/16 intake guides. This one is not the same. This is the 248 standard. And what that is, it's got a moved push rod pinch, so it requires shaft rockers. This one will be a 2125 intake valve, 1575 exhaust valve. This one's gonna be, these ones are probably more popular if you have shaft rockers, really gonna be a good one. And this will be the biggest version of my standard port design. Standard valve spacing one too. This is the 255 standard, was what it'll end up being. I haven't touched them yet. Right now they're just sitting here, cores, pretty much. But this one will be a 214 intake valve, 1560 exhaust valve. This one will have a much larger pinch than even this one. It will require shaft rockers. This one will be a pretty good deal. This is a set of profilers I need to get done. They're in line too. And they'll end up being they're 195s, but then they'll be 213s when ported. This MS91 that's gonna end up going on my 10XRI heads for a customer. Most of this down here is actually failed projects, or things that something is backed out of, and I'll go through some of them. I got some 14-degree heads I picked up from Ron's. One's unported, one's ported. I have the valley trays to go with them. If someone's interested, I could probably cut you a deal, because I really want to see what they do. I'm thinking about, these are set at Edelbrock Perform RPMs that came off a different engine. They actually, I ported them just to see what they would do. Ported one of them to see what they'll do. They're okay. Was going to use my sister's engine, but I just wasn't happy enough. So they're, like I said, failed project. A customer had sent this in. If you don't know what this is, it's funny. This is the Torque Link manifold. It's a dual plane for a small block Chevy. It's kind of rare. Anyway, I haven't heard from this customer in like 4 years. Nope, longer. 7 years. So it sits here. Same with this one underneath. It's another manifold someone walked away from. There's a set of LS7 heads that stock that I haven't touched. This is an AFR 245 that I actually broke through water just trying to see what I could do. That's a GB 2300. That's actually a manifold some customer had left too. He just gave it to me, but it's a 2926, which is a raised runner version of the 2925. I'll show you this head in a minute, but this is a failed project. Not really failed, but this was going to be the baddest 23-degree low port heads, but things came up. And these boxes are not RHS heads, but raised runner heads. They were the prototype for the 10XRI. This is the mate to that, what not to do when porting heads. I haven't really touched it at all. These are some Cadillac heads for a customer that needs to be done. Haven't quite got there yet. Not LS Cadillac. Intake. This is one of the big ones if you watch one other video. That's another intake that needs to be ported. It's a BMP deal. BMP intake. Which one is that? Another BMP intake. That's Ford's. That's another Cadillac head. Okay, there's some of it. That's only, no, you're like, that's not that much work. This is only some There's probably, take this rack, and then that'd be another that's also inside the office. And then you've got another one that's probably this much that's just on order. So, and I'm not joking. But anyway, let's go through some of the others. Oh, I want to show you this. This is what I mean by the failed project. This was the head I just showed you that the mill ate up on. What it started off was this customer contacts me. He's like, hey, what I want you to do is, can you do me a raised runner head that compete with the All Pro? Sure, no problem. I think I've got something that might get pretty close. I got a pretty good idea. And then some of you were like, whatever, there's nothing that can compete with the All Pro. Well, not this, but it would have been. Because I know you're thinking, this doesn't look like anything that fancy, because it's not. I called Brodix and I had them, I wanted to make a raised runner head, a 10X head, but I wanted it to move the valve spacing. So I wanted the valve spacing totally moved. So I did, and they did it. The problem was they used the wrong 10X casting, so it was a low port one, not the raised port. So the raised port one would have been up like here. But it has a 75, 135 valve spacing. So what this head has is, that's a 220 intake valve, a 1/600 exhaust valve. I'm not joking you. 220, 1/600 on a 23-degree head. Yeah, it had the chance, and it was supposed to also have had a vane cast in it too. That didn't happen. Anyway, I got the head after waiting for like 3 months. Wasn't what I wanted. Called the customer like, man, we're going to be even worse on time waiting because they sent me the wrong ones. It's going to take them another 3 months to make the right one. And it pulled out. So I got stuck with the heads. So anyway, Brodix cut me a little bit of a deal on it because it was a custom one anyway, because I was like, this isn't really what I wanted. It's not at all. I've lost the customer. They cut me a deal and I own it. But then I was like, I really want to see what it could have actually have been. So I started porting just one. It ended up flowing like 372, which is not what an All Pro would do, but it's also a low port head. And I found out another error that I made when I had them make the head. Yes, I had to move the valve spacing, but what I didn't have them do was move the water core. So what ends up happening is when I'm making the bowl wider through here, which you can't even see it, you're like, there's a hole. That's the head bolt hole right here. What you can't see because I've welded it up is it broke through when I made the bowl wider through this area. It broke through right there and created a good hole. And that shouldn't have happened but it did because I didn't have them move the water core over. So the valves got moved over, but the core never did. There wasn't enough room. So the point being is, if I was to port the rest, I'd have to weld just like this one on every one of them. But you can't even see. I'm really kind of, you can kind of see where it's different shade. But I'm really kind of shocked that I looked as good as it did. The head really pretty nice, and it has some ways to go where it probably could be better. But I mean, it's got a good. This is a 1207 entry, and it's straight all the way through. That was going to be a good one, but didn't happen. But anyway, let me get the rest of the stuff real quick. That's an engine for a customer. This is the 406 from Engine Master, just refreshing it. A torque storm for my car, or S10. This is the motor from the 2014 Engine Master Challenge. Jose actually owns this now. A couple of cranks. This looks like all garbage because this is usually where I put the stuff before I get ready to take either the car or truck to the track, with the exception of that block. This is the mock-up block for this 10-2 deck, in case you have to have an intake ported. That's what I use for that. There's that. I've already might have showed you my blaster. It's pretty handy to have. Get the scat nozzle, would be happy. Rails in my way. Parts washer, whoop-de-doo. And some more heads. Most of this stuff's got to leave. But like, I still got to flow this 366 for product view. This is my sister's engine, which you can tell I haven't done much progress with. When I assemble heads, it's usually here, so usually when you're watching stuff, that's what's happening. Oh yeah, if you want to get in the cylinder head business, you need a good valve spring compressor. This is from Buxton Engineering. It's a terrific one. That's what I use, and it's pretty much the shop. Probably not impressive, but remember, it's just me here, except for Jose every now and then comes and helps. But it's been so busy here, and he's been doing stuff that I haven't had him. But for a one-man shop, it's taken up about every second of my time to work with this. So probably not as good as what some of you expect. It's probably not as clean as it could be. But this is what I have, and this is what I work with, and it creates some pretty good stuff. So anyway, thanks for watching. You asked, you got it. There's your shop tour. Well, almost. I forgot to show you. If you notice, you're like, where do you grind? I actually have, oh, by the way, mini split. You know why I love working in my shop? Because it's air conditioned. So I don't ever have a problem with the getting too hot in the shop, thank God. But anyway, where do you do all your grinding? It's in this room. I try to keep the grinding dust away from everything else. So it's like a little dungeon in here. But it's pretty simple. Keep all my stuff here. Got the shop vac, the suck up stuff. Projects that are underway. Yeah, space heater because I don't have a heater in here. I do have another air conditioner because I'm not grinding heat. An intake that's almost done. Looks like it's done, but it's not. It's a BMP intake 4500. But anyway, this is where magic happens, or where chips are made and where I make a bigger mess. So now I'm done. You've seen everything. Thanks for watching. Sorry it's not as cool as you thought it'd be.